We're literally standing on the edge of a massive operational shift right now. For years, cybersecurity was, well, kind of static. It was all about building higher firewalls, slapping locks on databases, and protecting passive APIs. But today, we're actively handing over the keys to autonomous AI agents using the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. And look, these aren't just simple scripts anymore. We're talking about entities that can reason, plan, and execute incredibly complex tasks. So the big question is, how on earth do you govern a machine that can actually think and act on its own? Well, that's exactly what this explainer is all about, managing your digital workforce. All right, let's dive right into our core principle here. It goes like this. Every AI agent should be treated as a digital workforce member with defined identity, permissions, responsibilities, and oversight. This is the foundational mindset shift we absolutely have to make. We've got to start governing AI the exact same way we govern human employees. Because think about it, when a machine gets the green light to make independent decisions that impact your business, it's not just software anymore, right? It's a worker. To really wrap our heads around why this shift is an absolute necessity, we need to contrast the old world with the new. Old security, that was basically about building massive walls around your data to keep the bad guys out. But new security is a whole different ballgame. It's about governing autonomous agents that are already inside those walls. These agents are actively reasoning, planning, making decisions. You can't just slap a padlock on a tool anymore. You have to actively manage the independent machines that are actually using those tools. So, here is your survival guide for navigating this new framework. First up, identity and hiring. Second, boundaries and permissions. Number 3, management and oversight. 4, performance and firing. And finally, number 5, a quick look at the AGI era future. Let's kick off the employee lifecycle with Section 1, identity and hiring. This is where we figure out how to give our new AI agents an ID badge and an official job title. Look, no agent can exist outside of governance. Before an agent is ever let loose into your ecosystem, it's got to pass a background check that is just as rigorous as a human applicant's. It all starts with a unique agent ID and a cryptographic identity. Think of that as its digital passport. Then it goes through a massive review of its prompts and tools, right alongside a really deep business, operational, and security risk assessment. And finally, before day one on the job, it needs explicit sign-off from security, architecture, and a dedicated business owner. It is a highly structured hiring process, for sure. Now, this beautifully builds out our actual organizational structure. It's basically the corporate ladder of AI. Down at the bottom, you've got your Tier 0 advisory agents. Honestly, think of them like eager interns. They can just search and summarize, so the risk is super low. But as you climb that ladder, the capabilities really start to expand. By the time you hit Tier 3 critical agents, you're dealing with the digital executives. These agents are pulling off financial operations and security actions. The risk level there is very high, which means they have to operate under continuous, unblinking oversight. All right, now that our agent is officially hired and classified, let's move into Section 2, boundaries and permissions. This is the onboarding phase where we define exactly what they can and absolutely cannot touch. The absolute crucial point here is the principle of least privilege. Just take a look at this hypothetical finance agent for a second. Would you ever hand a brand new human finance hire the keys to the corporate bank account, plus the ability to alter HR files and reset security passwords? No way, right? An eager bot wreaking havoc in sensitive HR files is literally the last thing any of us need. So we restrict our finance agent the exact same way. It is explicitly allowed to handle expense reports, budget analysis, and invoices. But HR records, IAM changes, and security operations, those are hard-coded as denied. And, this restriction goes all the way down to the data level through context governance. This ensures agents only get the absolute bare minimum task-specific data. So public data is generally a green light, but the second an agent tries to pull internal, confidential, or regulated data, those access rules just clamp down. It's going to require approved status, restricted access, or explicit authorization. We're essentially putting blinders on the AI so it doesn't get distracted or worse, corrupted by data it doesn't even need to do its job. On top of that, we also have to classify the tools themselves. There's a massive difference between an AI querying an internal wiki, which is a super low-risk tool, versus an AI that's actively modifying production servers or tweaking identity controls. If you don't classify the tools, a low-tier agent could accidentally stumble into a high-tier disaster. So, with those boundaries firmly set, we enter Section 3, management and oversight. how exactly do we supervise an AI that makes its own decisions? Let's take a look.
We do it by mapping out a crystal clear escalation ladder for oversight, specifically using human-in-the-loop approvals. Step 1 is totally automatic for low-risk actions. The agent can search documents all day long without ever bothering you. Step 2 requires conditional approval for medium-risk stuff, like drafting and sending external communications. But Step 3 is where we absolutely draw a line in the sand: mandatory approval. If an agent wants to execute a payment, delete a cloud resource, or change a policy, a human manager's digital signature is mandatory before that action ever happens.
And when those decisions actually get made, we have to demand complete transparency through decision explainability requirements. Every single significant autonomous decision has to be completely auditable, and the agent has to successfully answer 4 key questions. Why did it act? What specific information was used in the prompt context? Which internal policies influenced that choice? And crucially, what alternatives did it consider and then reject? Basically, if the agent can't spit out the answers to these questions, it fails its transparency audit. This level of transparency prepares us for a very real, fast-approaching challenge: agent-to-agent governance. As these agents start collaborating with one another, we have got to enforce a strict chain of authority. They can't just spin up an army of sub-agents to do their bidding. Any child agent created has to completely inherit the strict policy limits of its parent, so a Tier 1 agent absolutely cannot spawn a Tier 3 agent just to do its dirty work. Next up, we handle the performance review in Section 4, Performance and Firing. Because, let's be real, just like people, sometimes an AI goes off track, and we have to be prepared to let it go. We stay on top of this by relying heavily on behavioral telemetry and continuous monitoring. We're constantly scanning the data to look for what we call agent drift. That's when an AI slowly starts behaving just outside its normal parameters. We want to catch excessive autonomy, spot any unusual tool sequences that might point to a glitch, and identify data harvesting. And maybe most importantly, this continuous analytics engine tracks if our digital employee has somehow fallen victim to a malicious prompt injection attack from an outside user. Now, when an agent fails that continuous review, or maybe it just reaches the end of its project lifecycle, it's time to retire it. We execute a strict 4-step agent decommissioning process. This is essentially the ultimate digital severance package. Step 1, revoke all cryptographic credentials. Step 2, completely remove all tool access. Step 3, archive the audit logs for future compliance and legal reviews. And finally, Step 4, disable the MCP endpoints entirely. We have to make sure the agent is completely and permanently stripped of its access to the network. Underpinning this entire lifecycle, literally from the day the agent is registered to the day it's decommissioned, are exactly 8 non-negotiable enterprise governance policies. Among those non-negotiable rules, a few really stand out as absolute lifelines. Every agent must have a human business owner, and every single agent must have a kill switch. Crucially, no agent may modify its own permissions, meaning machines cannot just hand themselves an unearned promotion, and no agent may create new agents without strict government's approval. Guys, these rules are the absolute bedrock of safe autonomy. Let's wrap up this explainer by zooming out and looking at the big picture in Section 5, the AGI era future. Where is all of this management actually heading? As we push closer and closer to artificial general intelligence, we're going to have to adopt corporate governance for machines. This means moving way beyond simple access controls and building a fully trusted MCP ecosystem. We need an environment where autonomous agents have defined identities, highly specific roles, strict authority limits, crystal clear accountability, and continuous supervision. Ultimately, if we want to scale autonomy safely without sacrificing our compliance, our technological oversight has to perfectly mirror traditional corporate governance. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on as you build out your own enterprise security strategy. As these AI agents gain more and more autonomy inside your networks, are you managing your machines as closely as your people? Because in this new era of autonomous agents, the line between software and employee, it's officially disappeared. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this framework helps you safely manage your new digital workforce.